Hello everyone. If you've ever been in a near-death experience, say you were lost or were in a wreck, and it almost seemed as if there was another person there comforting you, but you later learned after surviving that it was just you. This is known as the third person syndrome, and it's debated whether it's a survival mechanism or it's a supernatural occurrence. Ernest Shackleton and his team's 1916 Antarctic exploration became a fight for their lives when their boat, the Endurance, got trapped in ice. The route to safety was grueling. Shackleton and two companions, Tom Crean and Frank Worsley, embarked on a journey across mountain ranges and glaciers to a whaling station in Stromness Bay. For more than a day, the men trekked across the island of South Georgia against all odds. They survived. They largely credit their survival with the fourth traveler presence they all felt, which provided hope and direction, but never was really there. I know that during that long and racking march of 36 hours over the unnamed mountains and glaciers of South Georgia, it seemed to me often that we were four, not three, Shackleton wrote in South, his book about the expedition. Frank Worsley also wrote of the bewildering experience. There was indeed one thing about our crossing of South Georgia, a thing which I have never been able to explain. Whenever I reviewed the incidents of that march, I had the subconscious feeling that there were four of us instead of three, wrote Worsley per the Royal Scottish Geographical Society. Several adventurers and others who experienced life-threatening circumstances tell similar stories. That an additional person appeared and guided them to safety. This experience is what is known as the third man syndrome or third man factor. What is the third man syndrome? Third man syndrome describes the strange phenomenon experienced by explorers or others during survival situations in which a presence intervenes at a critical moment to offer encouragement, guidance, and support. Those who have experienced third man syndrome report feeling a presence despite being alone. Third man syndrome is typically experienced by individuals rather than groups. The title derives from a T.S. Eliot poem, The Wasteland, which references a third who walks always beside you. Excerpt from The Wasteland by T.S. Eliot. Who is the third who walks always beside you? What I count, there are only you and I together, but when I took ahead up the white road, there is always another one walking beside you, gliding, wrapped in a brown mantle, hooded. I do not know whether a man or a woman, but who is that on the other side of you? Is third man syndrome real? Writer John Geiger, author of The Third Man Factor, Surviving the Impossible, claims that there are several scientific explanations for third man syndrome, such as biochemical reactions to misfiring brain activity per NPR. He believes a spiritual explanation makes more sense. Clearly, there is a spiritual or religious explanation to this phenomenon, Geiger told NPR. Many skeptics and non-believers also have this experience, and they attribute it to other explanations, and there is certainly some very interesting science behind this. If we understand that the third man factor is a part of us the way adrenaline is, then we can start to access it more easily, Geiger added. It's not a hallucination in the sense that the hallucinations are disordering. That is a very helpful and orderly guide. No one really knows what causes third man syndrome. Many people claim it's a hallucination or coping mechanism triggered by extreme stress, while others believe it to help. It is help given by a guardian angel. It's an astonishing capacity if you think about it, said Geiger. And it sort of hints at this idea that human beings, we are never really truly alone, that we have the ability to call upon this resource that we most need it in our lives, when we most need it in our lives. Geiger spent 5 years gathering stories from individuals who have experienced third man syndrome. He chronicles the mysterious experiences in his book, The Third Man Factor, Surviving the Impossible. Here are a couple of accounts given in the book. Ron D. Francesco, who on the 84th floor of South Tower at the World Trade Center on September 11, 2001, when a second plane crashed into the building, he made several attempts to escape but failed to find a safe exit. At the brink of giving up, D. Francesco heard an unfamiliar voice. Someone told me to get up. Someone, he said, called me. The voice, which was male but did not belong to one of the people in the stairwell, was insistent. Get up. It addressed Francesco by his first name and gave him encouragement. It was, hey, you can do this. but it was more than a voice. There was also a vivid sense of physical presence, Geiger wrote in The Third Man Factor, Surviving the Impossible. He had the sensation that somebody lifted me up. He felt that he was being guided. I was led to the stairs. I don't think something grabbed my hand, but I was definitely led. With help from what DeFrancisco described as an angel, he made it out of the South Tower alive. He was the only one of 4 people to escape from above the 81st floor. While climbing in the Canadian Rockies near Lake Louise, Alberta, James Savigny and Richard Whitmire were overcome by an avalanche. It carried them nearly 2,000 feet. While Savigny regained consciousness, he was severely injured, and he discovered that Whitmire was dead. His back was broken in 2 pieces. He had a fractured on cracked ribs, severed nerves, torn ligaments in his knee, broken teeth, and internal bleeding. He lay down to hide. He then felt a sudden strange sensation of an invisible being very close at hand. It was something I couldn't see, but it was a physical presence. The presence communicated mentally, and its message was clear. You can't give up. You have to try, Geiger wrote in The Third Man Factor, Surviving the Impossible. The presence urged Savigny to get up. It dispensed practical advice. It told him, for example, to follow the blood dripping from the tip of his nose as if it were an arrow pointing the way. He walked. He kept breaking through the crust of the deep snow and was almost unable to pull his feet back up because of his injuries. Part of the time he crawled. The presence which stood behind his right shoulder implored him to continue, even when the struggle to survive seemed untenable. When Savigny finally made it back to the base camp, there were people there to aid him. When the presence left, he was overcome with loneliness. He understood it was more than luck that led to his miraculous survival. So there's just a few examples, and I'll provide a link, but I've heard of other stories. People got into car wrecks and there was a person there that helped them and comforted them until paramedics arrived, and they claimed they saw this person, but the paramedics or others who found them did not see this person. A lot of these stories remind me of what you hear about in the book of Genesis when it talks about the angel of the Lord and how he came down. There are examples of angels visiting people throughout the Bible. I do believe that interdimensional beings exist. Oftentimes we call them angels or demons. And I also believe it is possible that within our minds, sometimes we push ourselves in traumatic situations to continue to survive. But I do think that it is some kind of divine intervention helping someone out in times of survival. I just find the whole thing fascinating. Have any of you ever had a near-death experience where it almost seemed like force intervened, whether they spoke to you, you saw them? I know when I got hit by a car on foot 8 years ago, I ended up on the sidewalk in front of a Catholic school called Guardian Angels Academy, and it's crazy because I saw the footage of what happened. I saw the car too late as I was running. I had a bag of books and I went up in the air, and then you see the car, and then I'm just sitting on the sidewalk and I stand up almost as if someone helped me with my land. I know that sounds crazy, but I joke sometimes I'm like a cat with 9 lives because I've had a lot of near-death experiences. I'd like to know what your thoughts are on the third man syndrome, and if you have any experiences. Thank you for tuning in. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week. Take care, God bless, and until next time.